Operating a people-led business can be tough, and there's no one single secret sauce, magic ingredient that can make this any easier. However, I believe when you drive connection and you drive understanding what your team needs and how they see your business is key and critical. Creating a space where team members can provide feedback to you and they feel like you're actually listening to them and they're getting the attention that they want from you, and you have the opportunity to provide some feedback to them is a crucial part to the success of your organization. In today's dose, we're going to be talking about how to run an effective one-on-one. Let's go. What's up and what's happening, TPE fam, and welcome back to the dose. And on this dose, we want to talk about a one-on-one framework that we have developed here at TPE. This kind of comes from a conversation that from our previous lead better. Our last lead better dealt with systems and processes, and one of the things that the audience had a question on is, how do you get people to kind of convert from just kind of being there in the organization to having greater buy-in. And I believe that when you have the opportunity to run effective one-on-ones, and let me define what a one-on-one is. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one-on-one, but let me give you some definition. When you identify intentional time to sit down and have a conversation, a guided conversation with your team member to assess, how they're feeling about themselves personally, how do they feel about your organization, and it gives you the opportunity to be able to provide some feedback about their performance in particular and to steer them towards some larger team goals. And so in my organization, we execute one-on-ones in an effort to make our team members feel valued, to make our team members feel heard. And we really put a lot of effort and emphasis on prioritizing these things. It's a little tasking. Our organization is comprised of over 220 people, plus or minus 10. But we try to make a concerted effort to make a touch point with every team member that walks into our organization, because we feel like it's important to run an effective one-on-one, because again, it creates this space, this safe space for team members to communicate, and it also shows to that team member or shows to our people that we care. And so I've got 6 things here that I believe are the ingredients to an effective one-on-one, and I'm just going to give them to you as I have them here in our framework here. And the number one thing is you want to define the goals you want to achieve. Define the goals you want to achieve, and I'm gonna give you some examples of some goals that we like to achieve in our one-on-ones. Number one, we want to create a safe space for team members to communicate what they see and how they feel about the organization. This is important to us because a lot of times in management, particularly for myself, I've been with the world's most caring company now for over 20 years. And sometimes with that level of experience and that level of exposure, your objective lens on how things are actually going for team members who don't have that same level of tenure, it could be skewed. And so getting the feedback from team members who are newer and who doesn't have the same level of experience, understanding how different systems and processes impact them. Do they have adequate training? Do they have so creating a space to where people feel comfortable to talk about their experience in your business is one of our key goals. Number two, we want to assess the state of the team member by using emotional intelligence. We've had a lot of conversation here at TPE about emotional intelligence, and we want to leverage those tools to be able to read between the lines and what team members are saying and what they're not saying by just looking at their nonverbal cues, the word choices that they use, their demeanor. Do they create eye contact? A lot of times, team members tend to mask how they really feel about things, but when we dedicate time in the one-on-one, we have an opportunity to be able to try to feel out exactly how they're feeling, and if there's any challenges that they're enduring personally or professionally, we have an opportunity to address it and hopefully offer some level of solution. Goal number three, and for us, is to communicate key business objectives. And so again, the one-on-one shouldn't be saturated in these types of conversation. However, in that 30-minute window, there should be some wiggle room to be able to establish and identify certain things that are going on in the organization that you want to drive home. In terms of, it could be a performance based thing, it could be a culture based item, whatever that big item is for you in that season. Use the one-on-one time to be able to create a personal connection in delivering that. All right, component number two of running an effective one-on-one um, is to begin to get to know the team member during the course of the one-on-one. And so you want to try to make this as personal as possible. A lot of times when you're on shift and when you're in operations, you don't have a lot of time to create the personal connection. So we like to start with a short icebreaker. We start with just asking, like, what is your favorite TV show right now? What are you binge watching? And you'd be surprised to some of the answers that you might get, particularly for some of our younger team members. Some of the shows that they're watching are some older shows, and so you kind of have a bridge point between generations when you run an effective icebreaker that is geared towards getting to know them. And then just you want to create this dialogue in the beginning to make them comfortable and make them feel safe enough to say, hey, this isn't necessarily an evaluation. I'm not in trouble. Because a lot of times when you schedule a one-on-one, team members tend to feel like, hey, what did I do? What did I go wrong, or what could I have done better? And so when you prioritize creating a safe space for your team member, then at that point, they're more willing to be open in conversation about what they're feeling. So that's number two. Begin with getting to know them. Number three, celebrate what they do well. If you have an idea, typically for me, when we perform one-on-ones, I have one of my counterparts with me, and we are working through understanding what we know of the individual's performance, and we want to make sure we make it a point to highlight the things that we notice that they do well. Again, this does a couple things. Of course, this encourages, motivates, and acknowledges them. And a lot of times you'd be surprised, particularly when you deal with team members that maybe you don't deal with as often. They might be surprised that or recognize the things that they do well. So that's going to empower them to continue those behaviors, and they're going to feel motivated to do so because you acknowledge it. But also, too, this is, again, continues to create the safe space, right? And so if you just coming off of an icebreaker where you're getting to know them and they feel comfortable, then you're celebrating them. It gives them an opportunity when you get into these other components to be able to be more forthcoming about how they feel, because they feel comfortable and connected to you as you're delivering the conversation. So definitely just take the time to acknowledge that performance. And it isn't, again, this could be a minute or two of celebration during the course of that 30-minute conversation that you just acknowledge what they do well. All right, number four, provide insight on opportunities. And so in the same breath of you celebrating them, you transition into lightly talking about some of the things that they could possibly do well in a lighthearted manner. Again, this is not an evaluation. This is not, you're not inspecting their performance, but you're just going to offer a little bit of insight on just some things they can brush up on and get better at. Number five, give the team member the ability to give candid and unfiltered feedback about the operation and about how your business is running. I always say, hey, this is not an evaluation. You won't get in trouble. This is something that we really just want to try to get better. And I think when you lead this portion of the conversation with the mindset of, we have in our culture, it is about continuous improvement. It's all about continuing to get better. When you lead with that in this portion of the conversation, hopefully that will set up the stage for them to be truthful about what their experiences are, because they will believe, and it should be true, that you really want to just get better. So again, you've done all of this build up to get to this moment in the follow-up, so you can get that real feedback from your team to understand, do they feel overwhelmed? Do they feel like things are flowing and going well for them in your organization? And then the last but certainly not least, is to close. And so thank the team member for connecting, thanking them for their feedback, appreciating them for being willing to be honest and forthcoming. And I think this is important because you want to set the stage for continued dialogue around the things they observe or the things that they see and feel in the organization. So even when there's not a scheduled follow up, they'll be willing to engage in conversation, and they'll be willing to want to be able to continue to help you be better. So I'm going to run through those 6 things really quickly. Number one, define the goals that you want to achieve. Just walk into the conversation with an understanding of what you're wanting to accomplish. And I gave the examples of the things that we look for. Number two, begin with getting to know them. Getting to know them helps create the safe space, helps create an environment where people want to share. Number three, celebrate what they do well. Identify a few things that you know that they're knocking it out of the park in, and make sure to acknowledge those things during the course of the conversation. Number four, provide insight on opportunities. And again, this could be directly applicable to that team member, or it could just be a larger team member group item as a whole. Make sure that you just don't over formalize this, but just give some insight to some areas that they can get better at. Number five, give the team member the ability to provide feedback. And I didn't say this during this section when I was talking about it, but one of the questions we typically like to ask is like, what are the 3 things that you think we do well? Any 3, and then what are 3 things that you think we can improve on? And then we give the question, hey, if you were in charge, what would you change? And you'll be surprised some of the answers that you might get, or some of the things that you might thought you understood about your organization. This conversation might challenge some of that. And last but certainly not least, close. Make sure you thank the team member for their time. Make sure you thank them for taking that being willing to share with you in a way that will help the organization go forward. So I hope something was said during the course of us outlining what we feel like is an effective one-on-one. Again, a one-on-one could be a one-on-one, or it could be a group of 3. The individual, as long as it's the individual team member and you and a couple and maybe one other partner. This will help you create that connection that will help you pivot your organization into the next season in its journey. So thank you guys so much. And until next time, TPE family, peace.